Whether it's bad planning, bad luck, bad timing, or bad inventions, well-intentioned bad decisions have plagued history for thousands of years. Welcome to Historic Hindsight. Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're going to talk to you about Chancellorsville. Again.
Part 2! The part that it was so long. If I tried to do it all as one, it would have been a 2-hour
Yeah, this was
video.
It was what, a 5-day, week-long
Yeah,
affair?
it's a campaign. We're in a fair.
Yeah.
But to recap about
Briefly.
what had happened very briefly, the previous episode, we have General Hooker of the North, who thought he could get Lee out of his defensive positions by doing a two-pronged attack at Fredericksburg and then another attack down by Chancellorsville. So he was going to attack at Fredericksburg,
like that.
go around Fredericksburg through Chancellorsville and attack from the west, which worked. It got Lee to put part of his army out of Fredericksburg.
Nailed it.
Then he never actually, like Sedgwick, never actually wound up attacking Fredericksburg. His cavalry that was supposed to cut off Richmond from the trains and the telegraph lines to Fredericksburg, they didn't do their job.
They couldn't do that.
And then Hooker just was like, "Hey, I've got momentum on my side. I'm taking ground. We're going to go ahead and retreat to
Time to chill, boys.
defensive positions and wait for Lee to determine what it is that he wants to do."
So basically, the North started out well, and then just fell apart.
His forward leadership fell apart, and then Lee gets credit for being a genius because Hooker didn't do anything and just kind of sat on his haunches and let Lee split his army in two and not attack the weaker force ever.
All right, so now we're on to what, day 3 now of this this campaign is where we're picking up.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up right where we left off, where we got Stonewall Jackson, who gets shot in his left. It was his left, not his right, but his left hand, left arm,
By his own men.
By his own men.
After he went to look for something and then came back, and they're like, ah!
Yeah, exactly.
Also, no meth involved. I think we should point that out.
Yeah,
it happened in Germany, but
yeah, there's no Pervitin here. No Pervitin yet. Now, I did forget about mentioning this about Stonewall Jackson. He is a religious zealot, and I mean a religious zealot. He's a type that you don't invite to dinner parties because
he's going to talk about the things you don't talk about, religion, politics, all that, whatever.
Yeah, he's going to really talk. He's a Jehovah's Witness knocking on your door that you don't like. You're like, I don't want.
So not just a man of the cloth or a man of faith or a man who is devout in his beliefs. He's a zealot.
He's a zealot.
Because there's a difference.
And he's also, we would call him today insane. And even, in fact, people back then thought he was a little.
Like in what way?
He thought his innards were discombobulated, and in order to realign them the right way, he would, for long periods of time, stand with his arm above his head, just standing like this, to recombobulate his innards that were disaligned. So it is kind of funny that he gets shot and
sounds to me like he was a yogi.
Well, he's something.
Like he's just doing stretches.
So again, it's this guy who history tells you everybody loved him.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna maintain on my limb and say maybe he wasn't so loved by the troops, and that's why they shot him intentionally.
Yeah. You did
or
say that.
Whatever.
You did say that. Well, you did hint that this may have been a less than careful attack on whatever was coming at them through the trees.
Yeah, exactly. Now, on the evening of May 2nd, that's when he's shot and he's taken out of commission. He does go back to the aid camp and he will lose his arm.
Ooh.
Because if you get shot in the arm, you kind of lose it.
In the 1800s, the treatment is to cut it off. It's not like a surgery went poorly. It's like we're going to treat it, and now you don't have one.
But Jackson does a really good job of ensuring that everybody kind of knows the chain of command. So if I go down, A.P. Hill's
next
up next.
in line, and then
so
next
A.P.
man
Hill,
up mentality.
A.P. Hill comes up, he takes over, and is quickly taken out of action himself with some artillery shrapnel to the leg. So
jeez, an arm and a leg. What's next?
Second in command's down. So now third in the command actually falls to Jeb Stuart, who is who's the head of the cavalry of the Confederates, not used to leading infantry. And somehow he gets next up. But hey, it's an easy succession. Everybody knows, like, all right, Jeb Stuart's up.
All right, real quick, and I know it was a different time and names were different, but I'm sorry. If my third in line is named Jeb, I'm going to skip it and go to the fourth in line.
You don't like the Jeb Stewart?
I just, no, I have no problem with a Jeb Stewart. I'm just
You
not
just don't want him to be in
following.
command of anything?
I'm not following a Jeb Stewart into battle.
So, over the night of May 2nd, after Jackson is wounded and taken out of commission, Jeb Stewart pretty much has to halt the advance. It's too dark. We've already lost,
An arm,
an arm. We've lost a
a
leg.
leg.
We kind of let's wait until
He's
we
like,
can
guys,
actually-
I don't know. All the appendages are coming off, and I don't know what's next on the list. If it's another arm, another leg, or another appendage, but I'm done.
And of
Like,
course,
we
he's
gotta-
not
we
also
gotta chill.
in he's not in the immediate command area to just. He's got to get there too. I mean, there's a little bit
right.
Of,
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's
First,
gotta
second, and third in command are not all in the same room.
takes a
when stuff
couple of
goes
minutes
down.
to pick up the notes and read and see what's going on. So he does kind of stop the advance on the night. By the morning of the 3rd, Hooker's troops have, when you look at the map on the Facebook, or not the Facebook, but on YouTube's that I'm going to put up here, you're going to see that Hooker's command has now taken an almost phallic-like look. There is a very much a curved line that comes down, wraps around with a definitive tip, and then it comes back up.
Okay. So
yeah,
the whole attack isn't super. I was gonna say you might need to.
No, the
get
whole
medical.
the whole line is a curve.
Okay.
And you've got Lee, who's on what is the Union left flank, that is completely cut
Okay.
off of Jeb Stuart, who is on the Union right flank. So right now, the Confederates' goal is we've got to come up with a way to link our two armies so that they can communicate better, so we can coordinate a better attack.
Right.
So their whole goal on the day of the 3rd is to link the two armies. The Union's
together.
goal, obviously, should be we really outnumber both Jeb Stuart's army and Lee's army.
Just wipe
Instead
them
of
out
sitting
now
here
at
on
this
our
point?
haunches, instead of sitting on our haunches, let's press the attack. But what they don't do is they spend all night long digging in, waiting for Lee to attack him.
Why are they pretending like they're on the defensive? This is a war of
Well-
northern aggression, Tom.
Because apparently Hooker thinks that there is a school of thought that allows a military strategy of defensive offense, which that isn't a real defense is not really
The
a
best
strategy
defense-
of, yeah.
The best offense is a good defense, Tom. Any football player will tell you that.
Yeah, the best defense is a good offense, so they can get you off the field.
Wait, how's that going to work both ways? That can't happen.
Right? Yeah,
That
right.
doesn't make any sense now.
It makes
You've
no
ruined my
sense.
world.
Now, regardless of the losses on May 2nd, Reynolds has actually secured his position on the right flank, which is where he should have gotten to yesterday, or on May 2nd, but he's now there May 3rd. He's dug in on the right flank. The right flank is secure. Now, if you remember, Howard, who was on the right flank, who is not so great, he's now been pushed to the left flank, which is completely secure. So,
Wait, Howard was the
Misfit Corps.
yeah
the 11th Corps.
the land of
the-
misfit toys. He was in charge of them.
Yeah, they get pulled from the unsecure right flank and moved over to the very secure left flank where they are expecting no significant action. So they're like,
yeah, you go ahead and
you're
sit in the
done.
back of class. That's fine.
You are 100% in timeout.
Yeah.
Now-
Okay, take a look at these two pictures and find you got to find all the differences between these two pictures. Go.
In the early morning of May 3rd, Hooker makes one of his other brilliant command guffaws of what the hell were you thinking? Besides the fact that you're outnumbering these people and you should be going on the offensive.
Right.
So on the tip of the line, the tip of the phallic jutting down line,
Right.
there's a
the
little
pee-hole.
the pee hole. There's a little jut off of it. We'll call it a herpy. A little
Oh
wart that
gosh.
juts
Oh
off.
no. Oh jeez.
And that little herpy is really good high ground and is what's called Hazel Grove.
Okay.
So it is a prime position to place artillery. It is a prime position to observe the entire battlefield. You have the high ground.
Right. Yeah.
But Hooker does what Hooker does and decides to pull all of his men off the high ground to give them in a more symmetrical defensive position. So instead of having that little jut out that could expose itself from three different sides, he'll bring it back in line with the rest of the line.
Okay, so that sounds
which-
like something that would work really well if you're dealing with a flat type battlefield.
Yeah.
But given the fact that
You're on the high
He's
ground.
not. He's on the. He's not really in danger from three sides. I mean, they can start climbing up the hill and stuff from three sides, but just
Which
point
they would be
three
able to fire.
cannons.
Yeah, they would be able to fire down upon
Like
with the
what?
artillery. And so when you get rid of Hazel Grove, it's not like the high ground's just taken out of the battlefield.
Right.
Confederates go,
You
"Oh."
can't. Yeah, you don't get rid of the landscape there. It's still there.
Hey, look at that. I can get up on top of that hill, and I can put some cannons up on top of that hill, and then I'm like, there's the entire Union
Yeah.
line.
And what a great place to observe from the top of that hill.
This is rule 101 of military strategy. You never give up the high ground.
Well, he probably hadn't seen episode 3 yet or whatever. When, right?
I've got the high ground, Anakin.
Like that wasn't out yet. So how's he gonna know?
To make matters worse, this move to consolidate his line, he didn't do it quick enough. And oh yeah, the Confederates, that was their first goal, was to take that position anyways. And so they start their attack there in the morning, and they're catching the Union as it's walking down the hill. So they get 100 prisoners. And Johnny, this is the best part, they get 4 cannons. They get 4 of the Union guns. So they don't even have to bother lugging a cannon up the hill. They've got 4 of them.
You know? So like they're like, okay, guys, this is what we have to do. We have to prepare. We have to go. And we have to take that high ground. And then they went to that high ground and went to take it. They're like, all right, we're gonna fight. And then everybody was just walking down the other side of the hill.
Yes, exactly.
Like, guys, stop. No, you're with us now, and we'll take those cannons. Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
Jiminy Christmas.
Lee did not win this battle. Jackson did not win this battle. Stuart did not win this battle.
No, this was Hooker's
Hooker
loss.
gave this battle to them on a silver platter.
Hooker lost the battle. I mean, this is like when two football teams are playing. And
this is the Atlanta Falcons and whatever that Super Bowl was.
Yeah, with the Patriots.
Where they blow the damn 24-point
lead.
Yeah,
the coaches lost that.
Yes. It wasn't the
with
players.
Their terrible play calling.
Yep.
Sure, the players didn't execute. Anyway, that's a different. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a different story. Jeb Stuart does what a cavalry officer would expect to do, and that is charge! Just moves his whole front right down. The hell with it. We're going on a full frontal assault. Now.
Yeah. Which they should have seen coming when they heard the bugle charge call. Right?
Yeah, they should have heard coming when they heard the bugle charge. So most of the battle is going to be fought on the Union right flank with Stuart going full blast in.
Right flank's still okay because then we took away the weak division from the right flank.
Yeah, we took away the
left. So now we have a good right flank.
Yeah, the right flank is good. It's got Sedgwick. It's got up on the northern part of the right flank. And I say, when you look at the maps, it understands. At the base, so to speak, of this jut out is Meade and Reynolds corps. And
okay.
And in order to get to the phallic shape, Stuart has to go right underneath Reynolds and Meade, exposing his flank to Reynolds and Meade the whole time to do a full frontal attack. So
right past the base to get to the shaft.
Yeah, exactly.
What they've got to do.
Exactly. And so I say this so you can remember it later. Because anybody who's a military strategist would go, oh, he exposed the flank. Why the hell wouldn't you just attack with Meade or Reynolds' corps? You're going to wash up Stuart's. No big deal.
Okay.
But so keep that in mind.
Keep
that in mind. So he does a full-blown attack, hits the right flank as hard as he can, and it becomes a massive, massive slugfest between these two. Now, Lee knows that that's what Stuart's going to do because he's a cavalry officer. He knows Stuart. He knows he doesn't have a very large playbook for leading infantry.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of full speed ahead from him. He did his research. Watched the video.
He did his research.
Figured it out.
So what Lee does is he just basically sits back and does some harassing attack on the Union left flank, but doesn't really commit his troops. Doesn't really go into a major attack. His only goal is to
more of a defensive offensive type.
Yeah,
thing,
his only goal really is to harass the Union left long enough to ensure that Hooker won't move any reinforcements from the left to the right. So basically all he's doing is ensuring that Hooker stays placed, which he doesn't really have to do much to ensure that Hooker stays placed because as we've seen through the last 2 days, Hooker's staying in place.
But as a not terrible general, Lee is probably like, well, if I were in his position, this is what that's how he's thinking about it. He's like, I'm dealing with somebody. as well equipped as me, which obviously he wasn't. But so that's why he's thinking
And the
along
whole
those
point
lines.
is to get the Hazel Grove and then push up to Chancellor's mansion, Chancellor's mansion, which is the
Which
headquarters of
is
Hooker.
yeah.
That's the point. Hooker, as predicted, stays put, but he does give, finally, he gets off his butt and he gives General Sedgwick, who's over in Fredericksburg, a direct order. Not a attack at your will,
Right.
not a if the opportunity comes up. He says, get off your damn ass, cross that river, hit the high grounds, and keep marching until you unite with us in Chancellorsville. So he gives Sedgwick a direct order. You will attack, you will take the high grounds, and you will push through Pleasants Road all the way to Chancellorsville until you unite with our lines. Hit
Right.
Lee in the rear.
Yeah, because if you skipped part one and are just watching part two earlier, he went ahead and gave the command, but it was more of like a, if this certain circumstance were to occur, then maybe do this, and it was not very clear. So this time he made it very, very clear what they were to do.
He made it abundantly clear, this is your specific order. You will attack Fredericksburg at the Heights, at Mary's Heights or Mary's Heights. You will take that position and march on to Chancellorsville and relieve me while hitting Lee in the rear. Now, if that works, I'm not discrediting Hooker for this. This is perfect. Right now, in Fredericksburg, there's less than 10,000 troops. Cedric, I know you're laughing.
I'm sorry, you're doing the phallic thing, and then you said
Yeah, they say
relieve
it.
me while I
Hit him in the rear.
Hit him in the rear.
Well, Cedric's hitting him in the rear, you know. So.
Yeah, no, yeah. Sorry, I got caught off guard.
Yeah, you're fine.
I wasn't ready for it.
You're fine. So it's a good plan. Cedric has 40,000 men underneath his command to about at this point under 10,000 at Fredericksburg. You got a 4-to-1 odds.
4-1.
You can push. And I also have to point out that Early, who's in command at Fredericksburg for the Confederates, has put most of his troops at Pleasants Heights, which is where the Union almost broke through at the first battle of Fredericksburg. So there's very few troops at Mary's Heights and in the Sunken Road.
Right.
So
Very few Confederate troops. Lots of Union
yes,
ones.
yes. A lot of Union troops, not so many Confederate troops. So it's a good plan. And the morning is going to play out for most of the morning from like 7 a.m. all the way up to about 10 a.m. as a massive slugfest between the Union right flank and Stewart's command.
Right, and by slugfest you mean people shooting guns at each other.
Yeah, I mean
and
hard
forth.
hit slugfest. This is high casualties. In fact, this will become the second highest casualty single day of the entire war.
The second highest.
The second highest, yeah.
Now, at the time, though, was it the highest, or what was the
No,
highest?
Antietam was the
Antietam,
single highest,
and that was
highest day
before
casualty.
this.
Yes, and that was
Okay.
before this. Yeah, so it will become the second highest, and you know, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Anyway, yeah.
Jumping a little bit ahead.
I do that.
It happens, and of course, the entire time, Hazel Grove is now under Confederate control with Confederate artillery just shooting the shit out of the Union lines, and it is the only time in the entire war that Confederate artillery has an advantage over the Union artillery.
As far as just supplies go,
As far as everything,
or
as far as
numbers and quality and everything.
Well,
or
it's,
what-
they
I
don't
know
have
that.
they don't have better guns. They don't have better supplies, and they never
Right.
have better guns. They never have better supplies.
Right.
Most of the Confederate guns are actually smoothbore. What I mean by have the advantage is they have such a good strategic position that it doesn't matter if they have a lot of rifle guns or all smoothbores. It doesn't matter what their supply looks like. They're able to do effective artillery damage, more effective artillery damage than what the North is able to do.
Right. And
That's what I mean by that.
incredibly briefly, the difference between smoothbore and grooved bore.
Rifled. So the rifle guns have
Rifled
longer.
bore,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're accurate and they have longer range, and they can have what are called. They've got two major advantages over a smoothbore. A, it's the accuracy, and B, they have a impact detonated round that a smoothbore can't have.
Okay.
So a rifled gun, you can deliver an explosive shot that will blow up when it hits something, which is really, really advantageous to getting rid of infantry. If I can get that thing to explode right at their feet,
Yeah.
when it hits, it effectively gives all that shrapnel to the enemy line. Smoothbores are less accurate, and they have limited amount of, you can do a canister round of a lot of, like, turn it into a shotgun, or you can do a
Right.
solid shot, or you can do a fused shot, which will explode, but only after that fuse burns out.
Whenever
So
you have
have
it
to time it
happens to get
appropriately,
there.
and it's harder to do. So that's the kind of quick, short difference. Like I said, the morning turns into heavy casualties for both sides of the Union and the North, as the Confederates wind up learning about going up against really good fixed defended positions. This is kind of one of the first occasions that this happens where they're going up against the trenches, not vice versa. And they learn their lesson pretty good too. Hooker would be thankfully, or not thankfully, depending on how you want to look at this, injured at 9:15 in the morning when Confederate guns at Hazel Grove have a clear shot at Chancellorsville Mansion, and they know Hooker's there. They know that's his command, so they go, hey, why don't we take one of our couple of rifled guns and just start lobbing rounds at the mansion?
Yeah. I mean, that's basically all war was anyway. It was just lobbing rounds in a direction, right? Like at that point.
So Hooker's sitting next up to a wood pillar. He's sipping his coffee. He's going, I'm the best general ever. Woo, doggy. We're going to win this, guys. Don't worry. We'll just stay in place. Oh, no. Don't go on the offensive. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No. We got
stay
this.
Where you're at.
Yeah, guys, we obviously have them outnumbered 4-1. We're chill. We're fine. Let's just relax and enjoy this for a little bit. And then bang.
When a round hits that wood pillar, and that wood pillar comes crashing down on Hooker's head, where Hooker's left unconscious on the ground for about an hour.
All right, I'm sorry. We placed a bomb under Hitler's desk, and that wood saved his life because it blew up wrong. And you're telling me some random, just smooth bore, probably gun firing through a window? Rifle firing through a window, shattered some wood beam and took out the general of the Union Army at this point.
Well, they injured him, Johnny. He's not
took
dead.
But it took him out.
He has
no longer, right?
Yeah, he had. Well,
or is he going to stay in command?
Well, hold on.
Oh, God,
he has what's called a bloodless wound, and because it's a bloodless wound, they didn't really know about concussions and the effects of concussions, and how if you get concussed, you really probably shouldn't be in command of anything.
Right. Yeah, he didn't have to answer what battle or what day this was. It was what battle is this? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No blood, no foul, right?
No blood, no foul. So there is no blood, there is no foul. So while he's unconscious, all the other Union generals are like,
but he was knocked out.
We've got it. But unfortunately, there isn't a clear succession of who the command should go to.
They stopped the list at that point, or
they don't have the Union didn't have a clear Hooker didn't set up a you're the assistant coach kind of thing.
Okay, so this is a difference between the South and the North as far as their chain of command goes.
At least in this battle.
Yeah, well, for the chain of command in this battle is. The South had a chain of command. The North was like, "Oh, it's Hooker. He'll get it." And then,
he'll get it. So when Hooker goes down, he's meeting with General Couch, who should have taken command, but doesn't. You also have the option of General Meade, who's in that line of secession that was one of the higher up officers that probably should have been looked at, and it's really one of our more
I've heard of him.
Up to this point, one of our more up to this point, one of our more competent officers. Although he doesn't, was
he the Crater?
He's the head of the Crater. So take it as what you will. So right around the same time Hooker goes down with an injury, Meade requests to be able to hit Stuart's flank. He writes a letter up to Hooker's command and says, they're literally right in front of me. They're exposing their flank to me. I can hit them from the rear, hit them from the side. I will destroy this entire army. Just let me move forward.
May I please
hit them. But of course, by the time this letter gets from Meade's position all the way over to Hooker's position.
It was January. Nobody knew what to do.
And into Hooker's hand, they splash some water on him. Hooker wakes up and says, what's going on? Don't do that. Don't do that. Again, another one of Hooker's brilliant what the hell moments.
Okay, we can let him off the hook for this one, though.
Because he's concussed. Commands Meade to stay in position.
To just
stay there, hold position.
Hang out while they're like, okay, go ahead and hit us here. They're exposing themselves. Hit us. And they're like,
nope.
Maybe not.
Stay put. Hey, stay put. He then refuses, once he's awake, refuses to give up command to Couch. And nobody was really brave enough or high-ranking enough to go, no. No, we're going to go ahead and ignore that, and we're going to give the command over to Couch or Meade or Reynolds
Or somebody else. Yeah.
Howard's. I'd
No.
give it to Howard's 11th Corps of Misfits at this point.
So not a single person took a look at this guy's injury who had just had a rifle
Who'd been
beam fall on his head, knock
Sleeping
him
for an hour.
out.
For an hour. Not you get a concussion, you can be knocked out for as little as 5 seconds. He's knocked out for an hour.
Yeah, I think I gave you a concussion once. You were out for like two seconds.
Yeah, I was out
it
for
was,
like
it was
nothing.
out and
In
in,
and out,
then
in and out.
you're right back. And so he's chilling on the ground for an hour, and he wakes up and they're like, yeah, probably
Yep,
had a
you're still
lot
good.
of time to think about things while he was in his coma. Basically,
Yeah, nobody wanted to challenge it because after all, it was just a bloodless injury. You know, you're
blood.
fucking concussed.
Germany.
By 9:30 in the morning, Stewart was actually able to capture Fairview from Sickles' line. So he's attacking around Hazel Grove, which is the next logical position, which is Fairview, which is under Sickles' command, and it's also a good height position where that's where most of the Union guns are. Mm-hmm. He's able to attack it and take it around 9:30 in the morning, and Sickles says, "No, we can't have that." Promptly counterattacks and takes it back. So
Okay.
good, we've got it. But Hooker just woke up, and he told Meade to stay put, and then thought, "Oh no, we can't hold that position since Stewart got it once." So he orders a fighting retreat across the entire lines, abandons Fairview, and withdraws his forces to what's called U.S. Ford. So the phallic symbol is now gone. We are no longer a jutting out. We are just now a U position.
Okay, sure. Quickly, if you could describe what I assume I know what a fighting retreat is. It's basically walking backwards with your gun shooting at people.
Yeah.
Is that basically it?
That's
It's just,
that's a fighting retreat.
you're not just tucking and running.
You are taking steps backwards while continually maintaining fire.
Yeah, all right.
Yep. So around 10 o'clock in the morning, we've got Lee and Stewart shaking hands right in front of the burning Chancellorsville mansions, which, by the way, from the first episode, it's not there. It's gone. It's burned. It's a shell. Because, artillery rounds were getting fired into it.
Yeah, so they have like the little stone base that anytime you go to some reenactment site or American like a Civil War site or whatever, they're like, this was the place where the building, and it's like 3 rocks overgrown with dirt, and you're like, well, thanks for saving that because I can really get a picture of what actually was going on here. I appreciate it.
So you concussed idiot Hooker. You handed, by your fighting retreat, you handed Lee what he wanted, which was to reunite both of his armies.
I mean, Lee has to be flabbergasted at this point. He's got to be wondering what's going on.
This is cake, man.
Like,
is he really? He's got to be thinking in the back of his head, it's a trap. Like
it's got to be, yeah. Like
he's got to be.
Yeah, so at some point, like if your opponent in any game or mind type challenger is stupid enough, like it's that circle thing. Like eventually they'll get so stupid that you start to question, like, wait a minute, are they actually being a genius here? Are they doing something that like nobody's ever thought of, and it's a brilliant move? And usually the answer is no. And in this case, that's
the answer is definitely no.
That's the answer.
But what's going on in Fredericksburg, right? We talked about this. What's going on here at Chancellorsville? Everything's going great, right? But we know that Hooker ordered, before he was concussed, ordered Sedgwick to get off his ass and start attacking. Yeah. So about the same time that Lee's shaking hands with Stewart in front of Chancellorsville Mansion, he looks off to his east, metaphorically, because you can't actually see Fredericksburg from Chancellorsville. But he looks off to his east. He gets word that oh shit, things aren't actually going well in Fredericksburg. So early on the morning of the 3rd, with this direct order to Sedgwick to take Mayor's Heights, Sedgwick does. He starts off on the move. He has some things going in his favor. So in the late day of the 2nd, of May 2nd, General Lee orders General Early kind of in a confusing series of events. He says, look, if you're attacked by overwhelming numbers, I want you to immediately retreat to Richmond and defend Richmond. So basically, he's going to give Fredericksburg as a wash. If you're attacked
Right,
by
yeah,
overwhelming and you
yeah.
can't hold your positions, retreat to Richmond.
Right,
However,
basically make that home base and make sure that doesn't get taken.
However, if it appears that Sedgwick has withdrawn from Fredericksburg, I want you to march on to Chancellorsville and support me here. Because again, you got to remember that Lee is severely outnumbered. He needs as many troops as he can get
Right.
wherever he can get them. So he'll pull them from whatever side of the battlefield he needs to pull them from. Early took that as, you want me in Chancellorsville. Because at that time, it looked like Sedgwick wasn't going to attack. Because he hasn't attacked for several days, so he isn't going to attack. So he starts to pull his corps, or not his corps, but his division over to Chancellorsville. Hooker sees that on May 2nd, and that's why he gives the order to Sedgwick, take the heights. Hooker thinks this should be done in about 5 minutes because Early's pretty much gone.
Right, yeah.
And you
they're
should
on
be
their
able
way
to
out.
link up. You should be able to link up by mid-morning. The problem was Early realized he was mistaken by the morning of the 3rd when he sees Sedgwick's troops forming up and marching, and he goes, "Oh shit! Back!
No, stop,
back to
stop, stop,
Fredericksburg! Back! We screwed up." So he pushes his forces back. So by the time that Sedgwick gets into position and actually starts his first attacks on Mares Heights, they now actually have some defensive positions. But again, I also have to stress, most of Early's forces were put down by Pleasance Hill.
All right, and you might not know this, but so he's going away from a position and then realizing that people are going to come into that position, and that's
Yeah.
when he's like, "Nah, come back."
Yeah.
How might one find out that information on their way out? Is it just
Scouts. Yeah,
so it's just they continuously have scouts going back
there's
and forth,
scouts,
running all around
You've got
the place,
runners, you've got
seeing what's
scouts.
going on?
The Union has balloons, so the Union can see.
Right.
They have a whole clear view of the whole battlefield from
Yeah.
their balloon.
Okay, and
So
so,
they do
but
have a
the
little
rest of it
advantage.
is literally just they're like, okay, we're leaving, we're going to this place, but we're gonna keep sending people.
He does.
To
He
check
does.
out what's
Yeah,
going
and he
on.
does leave a rear guard. It's not like Early was completely abandoning
Okay.
Fredericksburg. So he does leave some troops there. So it's
which is also an early
those troops are
warning
like,
thing, and they're like, guys,
come back. Yeah, so they come back.
okay, that makes sense.
So the first two attacks in the early morning on Mares Heights go about what we expect them to do from the first Fredericksburg, and the Union gets cut to shit because you're attacking a sunken road with a good concrete barrier, or stone wall barrier in front of you, and the Union's got to go through open ground. And up
which
to
is
this point,
super easy, like right, you just
which is
stand
super
in a
easy.
straight line
Yeah.
and march.
and
right
up to this
at 'em.
point, the problem is what happened in the first Fredericksburg is what happens in these first two attacks, where the Union decides they basically do an advancing attack where they will march a little bit, stop, shoot their guns, reload, march a little bit, stop, shoot their guns, reload.
So
and that
it-
entire time, they're getting cut down.
This is a staggered thing, right? It's like one line goes up and they shoot, and the rest reload, and then is that?
That's a tactic that can be used. I'm not entirely
That's
sure if
not-
that's what
oh,
was
okay.
used, but either way, while they're marching up, they're shooting their guns. So they're not at the double quick. They're not charging the position. They're just slowly
Slowly
cantering up
coming
there
in,
while they
saying, "Hey
shoot.
guys, we're coming!"
Yeah.
Pop, bang.
Now, the Union does a really good move here. Sedgwick does a really good move, and he waves a white flag, and he calls for a temporary ceasefire in order to collect the wounded and dead.
That's the best idea ever. Like if you're like, "Hey, a battle's happening. Oh, temporary ceasefire. Let's figure some stuff out first, and then we'll go."
And the Confederates agree to this. They say, yeah, sure, you can have your temporary ceasefire. Now, while all this is going on, they're looking at the sunken road or at Mares Heights and going, you guys have like 10 guys in there. Like, you've got nobody. So after seeing that there's limited positions, Sedgwick orders a third attack on Mares Heights with the 5th Wisconsin under Colonel Allen. Now, Colonel Allen, before the troops even march, before they attack, he issues a command to his troops. He says, I know you think you can't take that hill. I guarantee you can take that hill. And you're going to take it because when I order you to march, you're going to march at the double quick. You will not fire a rifle, and you are not going to stop until I tell you to stop. And guess what? I'm never going to tell you to stop.
But wait, without
That's-
firing anything?
Without firing anything, you are fixing.
So they have to
bayonets,
just,
you're
like-
marching on the double quick, and you are moving and pushing them. You are physically
That's it.
overtaking them and pushing them out of their position, and it works. Man, it works. They just
and that's-
overwhelm that position.
Okay, and that's fine, and fair that it works, and everything else. I don't know how many you had or anything, but yeah, I imagine just a bunch of people like walking at you with bayonets attached and just you shoot a couple of them and they just keep coming. Like
Yeah.
because they're still doing that ramrod
Yeah,
loading
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
They're doing
It's-
that
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
And so
Yeah,
they
it's the
like
reverse.
bang, and then it's like, oh, he's got a big ass bayonet coming at me. Like what?
It's the
Okay.
reverse. It's the
Yeah.
reverse rebel yell. That's what
That's
we got going on.
terrifying. Yeah,
reverse
that's
rebel yell.
horrifying.
No, they do take high casualties. Shocker, because
I mean, yeah. I mean, yes.
But they
Again,
do-
this comes down to you can do anything if you don't care about human life.
Yep, but they do take the position. Now, Cedric does what Cedric does and is slow to march to Chancellorsville. He takes too much time regrouping his men. He takes too much time issuing the command to march in column as opposed to just continue battle lines and just march forward. So he's slow. And this gives Lee, who hears that Early's gone.
Yeah.
Because Early does a fighting retreat down to Richmond. So the minute Mayor's Heights is gone, Early does what he's ordered to do, and he starts pulling back down to
yeah.
Richmond. Pulling due south. Now, he doesn't go to Richmond, but he's moving his troops south, so that opens up the road for Cedric to move on. But Lee, hearing shovels digging in Hooker's positions, Hooker's new lines, his little semicircle U, knows that Hooker's not going to attack. Hooker's sitting there on the defensive. He's not going to move. So Lee does what Lee does, and he takes his troops, and he says, we're going to split them, and we're going to go deal with a threat that's coming in from behind us. Not a genius. Not even a
I mean, it seems like
risk-taker.
it seems like a good idea, though. I mean, that's
No,
not a
but
bad
it's not-
idea.
but
That's
he's
not
doing the
poorly
only-
done.
He's doing the only thing he can do, which is, I've got an attack
Okay.
coming from behind me. I've got to deal with that. So I'm
Counter
moving troops to
argument.
deal with that.
Counter argument. Hooker had a whole lot of things that seemed to have been the only thing he could have done, but he
And then
took
he
a
didn't do it.
different
Yeah,
different
well,
route.
that's 'cause Hooker's
so,
but my point here is-
he
my
was
point
at
here is
least
at-
competent enough to make the obvious choice.
Yeah. At any time, Hooker could have pressed Lee, especially after Lee sacrifices more troops to go over to to deal with the,
Right.
the threat coming in from Fredericksburg, but
Yeah.
he doesn't. So he'll meet. He'll send McLaw's division over to meet Cedric. Cedric wasn't expecting any opposition as he was marching his men in columns as opposed to battle lines. And Cedric
Wait,
gets
hold
stalled.
up. What do you? I don't know the difference between marching in a column versus a battle line. I am
So column is you're marching
single file
you're marching-
elementary school
well,
style.
Not single file, but yes, you're marching in file elementary school style.
Shorter,
That's what you do when you're marching on a long march.
like a road
Now,
or whatever.
if
Like
you're-
you're following
yeah.
path. You're okay.
And in order to go into fighting position, you got to go from basically 2 to 4 guys marching in a column to
that.
to a line. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And that takes time, and so you're not
Right.
battle
Yeah.
ready when you're
Everybody in the
marching a
back
column.
has to like run to catch
as
up.
opposed to just, hey guys, we'll continue this battle line, and we're just going to keep marching forward in the battle line, marching
Right.
forward, so that if something does come in front of us,
We're ready
ready to
with
go.
all of our guns. So they were so
don't have to take any
confident or felt safe enough to just
march in column.
just hold hands single file
So-
like elementary school and get to where they needed to go.
So when Cedric meets the McLaws, it's, oh crap, there's actually Confederate resistance, and he has to stop, redo lines. It takes time. He's stalled. He can't make it on to hit Lee's flank. Hooker again is upset because he's like, well, why wouldn't you? You should have just been able to make it right through here, not realizing that
Right.
Lee was going to divert troops to deal with a threat from Fredericksburg. Now, again, Hooker should have realized at this point, Cedric's not here. He's got the balloon up in the air. He knows enough about what's going on.
Yep.
He should have been like, okay, he's been stalled by a division that was moved to that, which means there's one less division here in front of me, which means I now have an even higher advantage in troops. Go forward, guys. Take it. But he does what Hooker does and just sits there.
Okay. Now, I know Lee was he was a little bit against secession and thought slavery, the dying whole thing, whatever. But like, was Hooker like pro-slavery and like secession is good?
Like a
And
secret,
like, and then he's like, oh, but I have to be a commander of the North because
No.
that's where I live. Like, that's not the case.
That's
This
not
was
what's going
not
on.
intentional,
this was not intentional.
as
And so
far
by
as
the-
you know. Obviously, because nobody
this is
knows.
not-
It
this
may
is-
have been.
No, this is, well, maybe, but this
It may have
wasn't
been.
intentional. Not that we know of, but it wasn't intentional. He wrote in front, he wrote my battle plans are perfect, and may God have mercy on Lee because I won't have any.
You know what?
What do you
I'm gonna
mean?
say it.
You give him all kinds of mercy.
I'm sorry. Hooker was a Southern spy sent to the north to try to ruin our army. Clearly,
Yeah, you know what? I'll deal. That's
like he was he was a northern general who was a southern sympathizer. Is what it was.
That's not the only thing that makes
fact.
sense for how stupid this whole battle was. So,
I think
anyways,
we can call that fact.
We'll call
That's
it fact.
historical fact.
So by the end of May 3rd, this pretty much is how it ends. You've got McLaws fighting Cedric over a little east of Chancellorsville, and you've got Hooker set with his semicircle U, and Lee just sitting there going, "Why the hell aren't they attacking us,
Guys? Shouldn't something be happening? No,
But
all right.
but between both armies on May 3rd, they would lose 21,357 casualties. Now that's not just dead; that's wounded.
Okay, yeah, right. Because casualties is dead, wounded, missing.
Yes. So 21,357 souls of casualties
is
in one day.
both sides
Both sides combined,
in
yes.
one day of this
one
battle.
day.
So that's not the total battle casualties.
No,
that's
we'll get there.
one
Yeah.
single friggin'
That's
day of casualties.
one-
It's 21,000 human beings.
Yeah. So we go on to May 4th. Hooker, like I said, is sitting tight in his positions while waiting for Lee to do something. Lee is, of course, engaging Cedric. Lee decides that his best course of action, again, knowing that, so after the morning, Hooker just reestablished his lines and did nothing.
Right.
He's probably going to still do nothing.
Probably just chill.
So not only does Lee engage Cedric with McLaw and Early's division, who's now returned from the southern retreat, Early's
they're back.
regrouped and coming back, he goes ahead and gives that whole side of the battlefield Anderson's division as well. So he's diverted 2 divisions over to Fredericksburg.
Okay. And this, I'm sorry, this was already, he was
Outnumbered
by
2 to 1.
2 to 1 in
2 to 1.
Chancellorsville.
So now what's over
And he's
in
just
Fredericksburg,
thinning it out.
yeah, now what's over in Fredericksburg is closer to an even matchup. Actually, at this point, the Confederates slightly outnumber Cedric around Fredericksburg. That's how
Okay.
many troops he's diverted
Yeah.
to Fredericksburg.
Which leaves so few.
At Chancellorsville, yes.
Chancellorsville. Yeah.
He's got about a 3-to-1 advantage, Johnny.
Oh my
Hooker does at Chancellorsville. And all day long, he's going to do not a damn thing while Cedric is getting attacked by 3 divisions. He doesn't send aid. He doesn't issue any commands. He's just sitting there in his concussed state wondering, what year is it?
What
color is the sky?
What is going on?
Now, surprisingly,
Oh my God.
Cedric, for all of his reluctance, is able to hold his positions through this onslaught all day long. The only regiment that retreats its position is a unit of New York Zouaves whose enlistment is up next week, and they decide close enough, and they go home. They leave and go home.
Yeah, that'll do. All right, so
There you go.
I
Close
have a quick question. I feel and I mean this is kind of a broad question, but so I feel like more modern day warfare, maybe not super modern day, but it seems like that advantage, that 2-to-1, 3-to-1, whatever advantage, is a big advantage.
It is a
But
massive
so
advantage in this
often-
time. Yeah.
Well, but then so often you see, like, they had a 3-to-1 advantage and nothing happened. And that's just lack of action. It's not just a
That
thing
is-
where it's easier to defend and you can defend 3-to-1 against that.
So if you
It's
read
just-
the art of war, Sun Tzu's Art of War, the Chinese guy.
Yep, no, heard
he-
of it, yeah.
Yeah, he makes it very clear that that there are certain things that you do in a battlefield, certain things you don't do in a battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
You never give up the initiative to your enemy. You don't let them have the upper hand. You don't let them make the decisions. You decide where the battle happens.
Right.
You take the initiative. You attack.
You make them play your game.
Yes, you don't let
You don't play their game.
you don't play their game, and you don't sit on your back haunches and go, I'm going to win by sitting here. You have to take the initiative. You have to take the attack. You cannot win by simply sitting still. You can't win an offensive campaign by simply sitting still. And this is
Right.
a Union offensive campaign. You're not going to beat Lee by sitting still,
Okay, and I'm sorry
not
for all
destroy
the,
his army.
sorry for all the NFL references, but this is basically Bill Belichick's reasoning for why he, used to run up the score on teams. He's like, you just keep playing through the whole game. Like, you don't stop. You don't let
Give them
up
the
on
opportunity.
anything, because then you might do what we did to the Falcons and come back down 28-3 and then come and win. And
Yeah.
so like that's basically what Sun Tzu was saying or whatever, is just you
Yeah,
don't
keep
stop.
attacking.
Keep going. You got
by
him.
by the night of the
Put your
fourth,
knee in his
Cedric.
throat.
By the night of the 4th, Cedric was actually beat up pretty good. His troops were running out of supplies, so they order the withdrawal across the Rappahannock River. Although, again, I'm not discrediting Cedric. He put up a valiant defense. He was actually outnumbered and still inflicted massive casualties to Lee. Massive casualties at this point to Lee.
Now,
So by the-
now from his position, he was in a defensive position at that point, right? He was
At that
being
point,
attacked.
he was being attacked. He had to form a defensive
everywhere,
position.
yeah.
I don't discredit Cedric for this. Now,
He
the
did what
first
he
few days
could.
when he was doing nothing, yeah, asshole.
Right. Yeah, but
Now,
here he did what he could do.
At this
and
part,
that's all he could do.
on May 3rd, he did what he could do. That's all he could do. He retreated across the river. Not a genius, not an idiot. Just he did what you would
That's just what
expect him to
happens
do.
sometimes in battles. Yeah. And
Now, the evening of May 4th, Lee was developing his own brilliant plan on how he can consolidate all his forces to attack Hooker's remaining position, and this brilliant one last charge, sweep him out of here. We're going to destroy the Union Army, because that's the only way the Confederacy can win, is by destroying this army.
yeah. Right.
So he's going to issue an all-out. His plan is an all-out frontal attack on Hooker's positions with all of his troops consolidated. So he brings back Early, he brings back the McLaws and everybody, and Anderson, and brings it back to consolidate his position. Now,
nice family reunion to have one last charge into the Union is the idea, right? And just and blow them out of the water.
so I have to keep in mind, although that's what his plan is, full-out frontal assault, you got to
Right.
keep in mind, by this point, the Confederates never had a lot of supplies. So they are running out of ammunition. They are running out of supplies. So we have that to consider in the back of our head. But more importantly, they have lost almost 25% casualties in their infantry.
And they were
So-
already outnumbered.
They were already
Severely.
outnumbered, and they have lost almost a quarter of their infantry through these casualties, through being wounded, through being killed, through being missed. Almost a quarter of their infantry is gone.
That's significant.
So I would look at that and go, maybe don't do an all-out attack. Maybe you proved your point, get the hell out of there. And if I'm Hooker, I would think now's the time to do it. Also understand that Hooker's able to continually rest and refresh his troops, because since he's been sitting there doing nothing,
Yeah, they had a bye week.
on May 3rd, as his troops are being hit on the right flank, they were able to be replaced by reserves. Like, all right, these guys ran out of ammunition, bring in the next regiment. They're able to constantly being refreshed.
Yeah.
So that is the one good thing about
And-
staying on defense, is you're usually able to refresh your troops more. Lee's taken the limited troops that he's had, and he's put them all over the place. There's not a unit that has sat back and done nothing. They're tired, they're exhausted. This is the 4th day of heavy fighting, and he wants to do an all-out attack.
Now that becomes a theme throughout the Civil War, right? That whole the North they had kind of an
They always had
embarrassment of
numbers,
wealth.
pretty much. Yeah, they had numbers,
And-
they had equipment, they had manufacturing to be able to replace those equipment, cities to be able to replace those troops.
Right.
The Confederates were always dealing with finite supplies.
Yeah, and so from the beginning, they're like, okay, basically we have this, and this is
Now-
what we had to work with, and the Union's like, we have this to work with, but then they just kept pouring into the canister of shit that they had to work with because they had the manufacturing, and the South didn't, because they just produced cotton on account of
Now-
slavery.
I have to paint the picture of how desperately outnumbered Lee was at this point on May 4th.
Okay.
The Union had 5 corps.
The
5 corps,
is
at least 2 divisions. They had 5 corps sitting in the semicircle. Not what's over in front. 5 corps sitting in the semicircle.
right. So that's that. Okay, and then division. So that's several.
Lee had
20, 30,
5.5.
40,000 men. How I don't.
Yeah. So Lee had 5.5 divisions.
Okay, and a division is about 10,000 men.
A division
right?
at full strength,
Full
which they're
strength
never at
division,
full
which they're
strength.
not. So
But it would be
Five-
around 10,000.
So 5 to 10,000 per division, typically.
Yeah, and a corps is at least 2 divisions. So
That seems like it should be a pretty, like, if I were to
I
set
hope
up
that-
a video game and I'm like, hey, these are the 2 scenarios that I have, fight each other, like that totally real combat simulator.
yeah, there's no way that Lee
How do you lose that?
would be
How do you
able
lose
to break those lines. There's no way that Lee would have been able to defeat the army. There's no way that if Hooker just issued an attack command would lose at this point just by sheer numbers. It should be fine.
I mean, it's like
So-
fighting China in a land war at this point. It's just they're just going to keep sending people, right? Like,
Yeah. So in the evening of May 4th, Hooker decides to call a war council after he says to retreat across the Rappahannock, and asks his corps generals, what are they what should we do?
what day is it?
Yeah, what day is it? So Meade, Reynolds, and even Misfit Howard says, we gotta attack. Like
No,
there's
I
like
s-
10 of them.
I assume
let's go.
Misfit Howard is a name that you gave him far after the Civil War, and nobody actually called him that during the day, right?
Yeah, no, nobody called him that during the day. No, I'm
Okay.
calling him Misfit.
Okay,
Misfit Howard.
good. I just
I mean,
you never know.
He wasn't. No.
Like
Yeah.
like the Union was known for putting generals in charge who like literally said, "I don't want to do this," and they're like, "You could probably do it."
You're good.
But I didn't know.
So he calls a war council. Meade, Reynolds, and Misfit Howard say, "Yeah, we're gonna fight. Let's fight." Cedric says, "Yeah, I've already retreated position, so I'm good." Which I mean, he did already retreat position.
I mean, yeah,
Couch,
he did his part.
Couch was still a little butthurt about Hooker not giving him command and thought that Hooker at this point was a complete and total idiot. And he says, "You know what? I'm done." He goes, I'm just, you know what? Do whatever you're going to do. I'm not going to say one thing one way or the other. I don't care at this point. You're just get the hell out of here. At this point, most people were thinking that Hooker was blind, stinking drunk by his actions that he's been taking.
Because
over the
he was
last couple days.
concussed.
But we know now that, yeah, totally concussed.
He probably had
So-
CTE. Who knows how many beams he had fall on his head in his youth.
So the majority says, let's stay and fight and attack. And Hooker says, nah, we're going to go ahead and retreat, and orders a general retreat across the Rappahannock, leaving Meade to defend the withdrawal. On the morning of May 5th, Lee wakes up ready to attack, primed, ready to go. And where are you guys going?
Hey,
Come back.
what, guys?
Just,
No, it's this way.
just
Quick going away.
flabbergasted.
What the?
Flabbergasted that he's watching Hooker's army retreat across the Rappahannock. Just doesn't understand. Like, what? Like, Lee was ready to make his last stand. He's like, we're good. We're going. I don't care if I lose everybody. We're and then they're just leaving.
He should have checked Twitter when he woke up.
So that's it. Over May 5th and 6th, there's no major actions. There's no major fighting.
It's
Hooker just retreats across
they-
the Rappahannock, and that's it.
So the Union had it. They had it. And then they're just like, nah.
I want to take this point
And they
while
bounced.
I was building this series, because I learned a lot about Chancellorsville this because I didn't know a lot before going into this. I'm not a historian. I don't know everything about everything, and I learn a little bit here and there where I go. I like history, I like wars, but this is a battle I didn't really ever pay too much attention to until I started researching. And as I started researching, I'm like, oh man, I probably could have been a better general. So I dug out an old CD-ROM, Civil War Generals 2, an old game from the 90s, way off of my Windows 98.
Hyper realistic.
Hyper realistic.
Definitely
I-
simulates the American Civil
Yeah,
War
I
to a
dug-
T.
To a T. I dug it out, and you can do campaigns, you can do whole
Yeah.
things. So I did the Chancellorsville campaign, and I did it and specifically so you could choose to fight which day of the battle you wanted to fight. So instead of like, hey, if
so
I
this
was
is
so good,
okay. All right, I'm sorry. I made fun of it a little bit, but this actually is a pretty hyper realistic
it's
game.
not.
Like,
It's not. Well, the graphics are shit, but it's not a bad game. No, it is.
no,
it
but
is
as
pretty
far
good.
as like the history and like it's like the real battles and
Yeah, you
situations
get
and
the terrain
everything.
and what the terrain looked like, and you get the
Okay.
units that were there. And instead of like doing the whole campaign where like I did every day on my own, I specifically chose to like, all right, May 1st, this is where the Union troops were, this is where the Confederate troops were. Can I win May 1st? And I did it. And in every single one, Johnny, without even trying, on the highest difficulty, I
Yeah.
obliterated Lee.
Now, do you think that has anything
Every
to
day.
do
Even
with you having like a
even
4-1 number starting?
it has everything to do with that.
Like-
everything to do with that. It's like,
And
are you
so, how did
kidding
they
me?
lose in real life?
I don't know.
How?
Because Hooker was an concussed
Well,
idiot
in
for half
action.
the battle.
I mean,
Uh,
in action is what it was.
in action.
It was
It was in
them
action.
not going and finishing the job.
Finishing anything, yeah.
It,
So the
it was
casual-
starting it and getting close, and then being like,
We're
"That's
good.
fine."
Yeah, we're
Go
good.
bounce.
So the casualty report here for Lee, he's going to suffer the most men up to this point in the war. He's not lost any more men ever up to this point. So he's lost. This is a single engagement that cost him the most amount of lives. He comes in it
Now,
with around.
okay, I'm sorry. Hold on, real quick. Clarification. You're saying not the total from before up until this point.
No,
He
no,
hadn't
just
lost
like
that
each
many.
individual. This is the
In
worst
any battle, any day, any whatever.
campaigns.
This was
Yeah, this is the worst campaign
Gotcha.
that he's suffered
Okay.
casualty wise. Yes.
okay.
So up to this point, he had a 60,000 men to start this battle with.
Mhm.
He would have 13,303 total casualties
Oh,
through this campaign.
I thought you were gonna say leftover.
No,
Which
no, total-
13, and I'm sorry, 13,000's a ton.
the
Like,
vast
that's a-
majority of them are infantry, by the way, not cav, not artillery, not other.
And so
side
most of
things.
the
It's
infantry, like, so those are mostly are going to
these
be
are his fighting men.
deaths.
These are well, they are 1,665 killed, 9,081 wounded, which a lot of them would
Die later
Not
because
make it.
of gangrene.
not make it. In 2018, missing or captured, most of those would be
Okay.
captured. Now the Union's going to start this campaign with 133,000 men. They're going to lose 17,197, and this is the first battle that we talked about where we're like, oh, damn, those numbers are actually pretty
That's a
close.
lot. Yeah.
And it's even more deceivingly close because 1,606 were killed outright. So more Confederates were actually killed outright during this campaign than Union.
More Union or more Confederates?
More Confederates were killed than Union outright.
Okay.
Outright killed. 9,672 were wounded. So more Union wounded, but not by a lot.
Yes.
And 5,919 were missing, and most of them were captured. And most of them were captured from Howard's Corps that sat and said, I don't believe that anybody's coming from our flank, and then did nothing. And then they came from the flank.
And then, oh God, they came from the flank and now they captured us. What are we gonna do?
Neither army was able to destroy the other. So in reality, although this is credited as this massive victory for Lee, he's not able to beat Hooker's entirely.
Was any
doesn't
no
regain
ground
any-
changed, right?
No
Like,
ground changed. The Union before the battle was north of the Rappahannock. After the battle, they're north of the Rappahannock. Lee gains no new ground. So in reality, other than pushing off this assault and winning the campaign, nothing really changed. for
Okay,
Lee,
so
except he lost a ton of men.
I'm sorry, real quick, real broad question. Did the South lose the Civil War because they lost the Civil War, or did they lose the Civil War because they just eventually ran out of supplies, people, and ability to continue to fight?
The only way the South could have ever won the war, and this is an opinion, would have been had they gone on the offensive right away and taken the will to fight from the North. They would have had to engage the North on Northern territory right off the start.
Which
if
they could have done that by
And-
invading the Capitol building
Yeah.
and trying to overturn an election.
yeah,
Theoretically.
theoretically speaking. Now Lee knows this. Lee said this to President Davis. President Jefferson Davis said, "Look, we got to go on the offensive. We can't sit back on our haunches. We have to go on the offensive because if we wait to try to do a defensive campaign, we are limited in people. We're limited in supplies. We're going to lose a long-term war." So.
I'm
and-
sorry, I'm
yup,
exposing my ignorance. Tell me about Jefferson Davis. Was he the Confederate president?
Confederate president. Yeah.
Okay,
Confederate president.
okay, all right.
Yep. Hooker, after the battle, would tell his men that it was a great victory for them and that they should be proud because they caused high casualties. And although not all their objectives were accomplished, mission accomplished. You didn't accomplish any of your objectives.
Hooker,
None of your
Hooker called
objectives.
mission accomplished.
Hooker called mission accomplished.
Did
when
he
there was-
did he do it on top of like a
I-
naval cruiser?
Yes, he did. He did. I'm gonna go ahead and say it.
Flew a ban-
I'm gonna
flew
go
a
ahead and say
banner.
He did it. Hooker would place the blame on the loss that wasn't a loss on Cedric and the cavalry of General Stoneman, which is, I mean, Cedric didn't do anything until directly ordered to, but Hooker, that's still on you because you should have given the direct order anyway.
Yeah, right,
And-
right. That guy sitting there and be like, "I'm sorry, I do what I'm told. I'm a soldier in an army. tell me
Yeah.
what to do.
You said do it if you want to, and I didn't want to. So.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, you can't leave them any leeway of, well, in your opinion, if this thing were to escalate here. No, it's like, if this thing happens, you do this.
Do this.
And then he'll do it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, General Couch would be so upset with Hooker and this whole debacle that he is actually going to resign his position and say, "Deuces, I'm out. This was stupid, stupid." Hooker,
Yeah,
in
so
private-
this is like a pro going to like an amateur pickup basketball game and be like, all right, this isn't worth it. Like, what?
Yeah.
This was it. What are
This-
you guys even doing here?
yeah,
This is insane.
this is Hooker in private. Hooker, this is where he gets his famous quote. Tell you the truth, I just lost faith in Hooker. That's where this quote comes from. I just lost faith in Hooker.
Like,
I'm sure he had to still be concussed at that point.
like you told me that quote, and I'm like, oh, who said that? And you're like,
Hooker.
no, it was Hooker. He said it. He said he was speaking in the third person. That's good God. Like, I can't imagine. Okay, as a human, nope. Okay, I can't imagine as a human being being in charge. First of all, being in charge of that many people and all that, but then like at the end of it, being like, well, I don't know, I just kind of lost confidence in myself and cost the lives.
But he doesn't
of-
say it. I lost confidence in myself.
No,
He
no,
says,
of Hooker.
I lost confidence in Hooker.
Hooker must have lost confidence
person,
in
third
himself.
person, third
'cause
person.
Good God, I don't know what to
Uh,
do. But like, could you
yeah.
imagine that? Like, Hooker's got to be feeling pretty bad right now.
You would think. Lee, when Lincoln would find out, Lincoln would say, my God, what will the country say? He is so embarrassed by this shit show. It was a shit show. Ah. Now, Lee would be heartbroken.
So I mean, he's embarrassed in the same way that like the United States would be embarrassed if they went into some, I don't know, third world country like Vietnam and then weren't able to win anything, right? Like that's the type of embarrassment they're feeling.
So, anyways, Lee would be heartbroken by the number of men that he lost, and he couldn't replace.
Tom, I noticed you didn't answer my question.
I didn't answer your question. No, I didn't. And he said, and I quote, at Chancellorsville, we gained another victory. Our people were wild with delight. I, on the contrary, was more depressed than after Fredericksburg. Our loss was severe. And again, we gained not an inch of ground on the enemy, and the enemy could not be pursued. So Lee recognizes this isn't a victory.
Like, guys, we didn't do shit. We did nothing. Like, we were severely outnumbered, and yeah, we did okay, but
our victory
nothing
is we
happened.
didn't. Yeah, our victory is we didn't get defeated. That's
Right.
the only victory that can be claimed from it. He also lost General Paxton and Stonewall Jackson. Although his wounds weren't mortal, after his amputation, he would contract pneumonia and would die on May 10th. So he loses arguably his best general and probably like the second most loved person in all of the South. You had Lee, who was like the most known and loved, and then arguably Jackson was the next.
Yeah, well, that and you know, there's that whole next man up mentality, like what they had with their pecking order. But eventually, next man up
Is Jeb Stewart.
is
Is
some
a
dude named Jeb. And you know, what are you gonna do with that? Nothing.
Hooker's army is
You're gonna lose a civil war.
You're gonna
and
lose
then,
a civil war, yeah.
and then you're gonna have to try to start it again. You know, 250 years later, 200 years later, however,
100,
I don't know,
160, John.
160 years later. I don't know what year is it. I don't know.
Hooker's army would retreat back across the Rappahannock and lick its wounds, where Hooker would actually keep his command until just before the Battle of Gettysburg, when he annoyed Lincoln enough that Lincoln finally said, yeah, we're done. Right before Gettysburg, Lincoln said, you know what?
Hooker,
We're done. Hooker, get out of here. And he's going to put Meade in command of the Army of the Potomac, and Meade would actually maintain this command pretty much through the rest of the war, although a lot of that's name only, because eventually he makes, Grant the overall commander of the armies, and Grant sets up his headquarters at the Army of the Potomac. So, I mean, yes, Meade, you're the general of the Army of the Potomac, but your boss is sitting right next to you the whole time.
sorry,
So-
Meade did it the way I would have done it.
Played backup quarterback to Peyton Manning.
Oh, it's so good. Jim Sorgi is the best NFL player in the world because he did it right.
He did it right, didn't do anything.
You get paid bank and then back up the best thing ever. And like that's what you do. Like, right? Like you surround yourself with people better than you.
Yeah.
That's what you should always strive to do.
That's what Burnside tried to do, but
It turns out he knew a bunch of
anyways,
shit people.
Lee would regroup with Longstreet, who was very critical of Chancellorsville campaign, and he said it was a very risky gamble that cost too many lives that could not be replaced. And he himself kind of said that this is the beginning of the end. We lost too much. Lee recognizes that we can't sit on the defensive and finally get some, well, he doesn't get some cojones. He convinces Davis that we need to go on the offensive. And this is what's going to start the Gettysburg campaign, which totally doesn't cost the Confederacy anything. It was a great gamble that completely paid off.